Hi everybody, and welcome back to the Doll Shop, and welcome back to maybe another installment of Barbie segments with me. It's Halloween, or at least it's almost Halloween, and I've got a noisy coffee mug. And I was thinking about, for the season, for, spooky season for October, every year I dread, just a little bit, trying to come up with a witty, fun, inventive, entertaining costume for Halloween. I mean, I love rising to the occasion, but sometimes it also feels a little bit like a little daunting. And all of my friends like to go, hard. We all try to outdo each other a little bit. And so I was thinking about, what am I going to do? What am I going to wear? And then I was, about last week thinking about Barbie, as I often am, and how she's like the queen of costumes. And, even back in her earliest days, the fashions were advertised as costumes. So I guess you could say that, you could argue maybe that every one of her fashions is a costume. But I want to sort of go through, in this video, some of what I think are my favorite fashions that she's worn, like, as costumes. And then maybe some of the fashions that you think of when you think of a costume for Barbie, and maybe I'm showing some of them, and maybe I don't, and too bad if I don't, I'm sorry. And then maybe there are things here that you've never seen before. So I'm taking my attention off of my own costumes for this video and indulging in whatever, existing Barbie wardrobe I have. I want to avoid talking about actual holiday costumes. Like, Barbie's done several Halloween costumes before, and similar to the Valentine's Day video we did a while back, there are many Valentine's Day themed dolls that you do not need my help to find. Similarly, if you want to be entertained and see something maybe you haven't seen before, I do not need to show you the plethora of Halloween-themed dolls, so maybe I'll avoid going too far into that. And I guess you could argue too that, I don't know, like, branded products could be costumes. Like, we're not going to talk about, like, Coca-Cola in this video. All of the Diet Coke and Coke product dolls are not going to show up in this video. There are many things that you could sort of wager as a costume, so I'm trying to prune that in, because there's a lot to cover, and I brought about a dozen of my favorite examples today. And then I also have, I don't know, maybe another dozen examples on my phone that I was thinking of when I was compiling these ideas. So welcome to a Halloween installment version of some of my favorite Barbie fashions, and specifically Barbie costumes. If you are trying to put on a little Halloween party diorama or vignette at home, consider, if you have some of these, breaking them out. Let's see what we have to get started with. So I want to get started with what is technically her first costume, and this was, I want to say 62. I'm not gonna check, but I'm gonna guess it's 62. It would make sense to me. Maybe 63. We have a costume for Barbie called Masquerade, and I brought one today on my favorite friend, Midge, and we have a runaway shoe. We have a costume here that is very sort of, classic 60s, maybe storybook. I think of this as sort of a storybook interpretation of, like, a costume, a, like, spooky costume, because it's not scary, it is fun, it's very flirty. Classic Barbie. This is one of my favorites. There is a variation for Skipper, there's a variation for her poodle with dogs and duds, there's also a really unsettling, I would say terrifying, version for Ken. If you are on Dolly Instagram, there are people right now all over the internet, all over Instagram, putting out some fun storylines with one very scary Ken mask, and I can show the photo here that I have of the set of the three of them. It's a fun little trio, but Ken stresses me out. I actually really love clowns. That is a particularly unsettling, very effective clown mask on Ken. So because this is about Barbie, because everything's about Barbie, I don't think about Ken. We're gonna show you Barbie fashions today, and that shoe does not want to stay on, so I'm going to ignore it like it's not there. This is Midge, and I love this stupid little mask. One of the themes of this video, I think I want to focus on masks a little bit, because those always feel like costumes to me. Like, I think it's impossible to be a costume with, or maybe it's impossible for something to be a mask to not be a costume. Prove me wrong, we'll see. But this one is, how can you go wrong with her very first? Moving right along, I would say next you would have like 63, 64 little theater fashions, and I have a couple of those with me. I'll show you also a photo here of the Cinderella fashions, and I have one of the versions with me really grateful that the tissue I've stuffed underneath this skirt does not peek out at the moment. If that happens, ignore it. I don't know what you're talking about. This is one of my very, very favorites. This fashion came in 2 major variations. There are, you know, Japanese exclusives and whatever otherwise, but for sort of classic collector market stuff, this is the less commonly seen version, with the applique on the skirt there being a sort of like symmetrical, very royal, you know, flourish. The other one, again, which you can see in the photo, is sort of an asymmetrical, really pretty, I think of it as like kind of a pumpkin shape, like the way that, you know, a pumpkin is a big part of the story. The flourish on the other more common example has a sort of asymmetrical, swoopy, swirly thing. It's pretty, but I mean, I love this. And this skirt is actually just a little faded, but I think it's even nicer when it's kind of pale. The bright butter yellow is very eye-catching, but I think this is a little bit more elegant. And with it comes the poor Cinderella version. So this is her, you know, sort of sweeping away in her house and daydreaming and singing, and, you know, so this is love alone in her, you know, castle. And it's very cute. This has a broom, actually, which I'll show you later. It's a really cute fashion. The little theater fashions are, I think, some collector very favorites, and I get why. They're some of my favorites too. It's interesting because Barbie started very self-serious, and I think that would sort of continue on, particularly through like the 70s, but the little theater fashions came on very, very early in her timeline, and they were sort of the first seed of imaginative play that is not projecting a future, maybe. It's full fantasy and allowing you to fantasize and play with storytelling. And I love that element. We see that come back around in the late 80s a little bit, certainly the 90s, in through the 2000s, all of the like mermaid, fairy Barbies, all of that, I think is what so many of us think of as classic Barbie. But there actually was a little grain of that from the very beginning with little theater fashions. And I didn't want to drag all of the hullabaloo of the full theater with me, but I have the theater. If you want to see more about it, we have a video. Go check out the little theater video that we did ages ago. It's still one of my favorites. With that, I also have sort of a silly example of a different fashion for the little theater collection. This is silly. This is a combination of the wolf from Little Red Riding Hood that is supposed to come with Ken, but the fashion is, you know, the Little Red fashion is actually, it's, you know, it's a dress and it's a cape and it's a corset and shoes and, you know, buns and a basket, and it's a whole bunch of things. But the wolf is actually just the head. So it's designed to maybe put onto Ken in any ordinary fashion. I find that boring. So I thought it made quite a bit of sense to put it with Sweet Dreams, which is a favorite, and imagined that maybe this is the wolf in bed that Barbie as Little Red sort of wanders in to see with her cinnamon roll and her little hair bow in her ear. I think this is fun. Consider this a reminder that if you have been reserved with, you know, if you feel trepidatious or not confident that you can play with your vintage dolls, that's what they're for, you guys. Go have fun. I think this made me laugh, and so if you can't laugh at your own jokes, you know, what are you doing? Go have fun with your dolls. This head is amazing. I just wish it came with more of a, you know, if we had like paws, if we were doing the like, you know, the Barbie surprise, whatever they're doing now with the like the full furries, I think this with like paws and a suit would be really cute. Anyway, one of my favorites, the little theater fashions, I think are a must for Halloween costumes. So moving on to more like fantasy fashions that are still, I don't know, they're Barbie fantasy fashions. We have one of my must-haves. This is Miss Astronaut from 1965. This is the vintage set, and actually I do have the very delicate little American flag back at home, but I decided to leave that there. This is also sort of a reminder for, you know, pop culture, whatever, that Barbie was an astronaut before women were in real life. And so in context, I think of this as sort of fantastical. It's certainly aspirational, and it's certainly a career. Again, I think you can really, the line is really fuzzy for Barbie collectors. What is a career? What is a costume? What is too sincere to be a costume? Like, you could sort of dissect all of this in really abstract, metaphorical ways, and I love to do that, but I don't have all the time in the world to do so. So I'm going to keep this brief, but I do really love this fashion. This to me is such a beautiful merging of what is traditionally considered masculine with something that is hyper feminine, and I love to toddle on that line myself, and this feels whimsical and fantastical and gorgeous to me. It's a perfect fashion, and I don't think Barbie as a brand knew what this would do before they put it out. I don't think you can see so far into the future, even with something as successful as Barbie. There was no way that the company could foresee 20, 30, 40 years in the future, and this still remains like a legacy for this character. Barbie's a character. Barbie has a personality and lore and canon, and this is a classic must-have pop culture nugget for Barbie for me. I'm very proud of this piece, and it's one that I admire in my own collection all the time. So in the scheme of fantasy, I want to fast forward a couple decades and play with something that's not quite the same vibe, and show you some of my new favorites. So in the late 90s and early 2000s is sort of where we see the return of like really Barbie can be anything, and when we mean anything, or when we say anything, we mean anything. There's many sort of examples of that. So classic Halloween, I'm breaking my rule a little bit. This is a vintage number 3, but she's wearing a 95, I'll double check that. I think it's a 95 costume from a set with Ken called Halloween Party, and they're both pirates, and I think it's very cute. But I love that this feels like a real, like, something you'd pick up from like Kmart. Like you're going to Party City. I think rest in peace to both of those businesses. But it sort of evokes that same excitement that I would have had to go like shopping for costumes as a kid. It's made of the same like cheap mass-produced costume fabric. I love this fashion, and on a vintage doll, I think it really communicates costume. You know, I think we can really go into the sort of abstract definitions of like what makes a costume and like how far away from real time does it need to be? How recognizable or obvious is it as a touchstone culturally? Like, do people understand what it is when they see you? Does it play into current events or a joke, or is it referential to, you know, a movie or a film? And I think you see this in its bright jewel tones, in its sort of playful depiction of what this concept is. It's a little flirty, it's a little sexy. I think it's very effective as a pirate. I love this fashion. And on a vintage doll, I think it really translates as, you know, her going to a party. In line with that, I have a couple more of these sort of fantasy fashions. Who doesn't love a mermaid Barbie? I don't know how this is going to photograph. She's very reflective, so if this is crazy in camera, I'm so sorry. But this is another sort of vintage swirl. I love this doll, and she's got this sort of like coppery, penny orange Titian hair. And this is my first fashion for Barbie. So this isn't even like major mermaid Barbie of any kind. This is sort of like a really simple play line, just like classic mermaid, that is made to be sort of beaten up. And I love it on this doll. I think the fact that she can still walk is what makes it a costume to me. I regrettably, sorry Barbie, I did not give her shoes, but I think a lot of the mermaid dolls are real tales, and so that transports you to, you know, playing with her in the pool, in the bath, and feeling like she's, you know, really a mystical creature. I didn't want that. I wanted something that felt like a costume. And so her being able to like toddle around in, you know, open-toe mules in this, I think is so funny. Like, I love that idea. And it's very restrictive. I mean, it's, you know, a floor-length, you know, mermaid silhouette. There's no wiggle room at the ankle. I just imagine her at a cocktail party, like, fumbling about and spilling her drink everywhere. I love this fashion, and I think, you know, playing with color theory as much as, you know, I like to, as often as possible, this sort of bright, reflective, crazy, metallic turquoise with her sort of like orange-red hair, it felt right. And this fabric, like, can you hear that? This is that classic, crunchy, crispity, 80s, 90s, 2000s plasticky Barbie metallic fashion fabric. If anyone has nostalgia for that, there's more where that came from. It's certainly costumey. This one is maybe my favorite. I won't pick one right away, but this one might be my favorite. I love this. The fact that she can, like, I don't know, come into the party as an angel is, first of all, hilarious to me, because Mattel would never do a devil, and I wish, I wish there was a devil horn little red robe costume for Barbie, because that would be everything. But here we've got an angel, and I think she is so cute. I've got this on one of my new favorite dolls as well. This is, I think she's a platinum. She doesn't look like a white ginger to me, but she looks like she used to be once upon a time a platinum. What makes her fun is she's a painted leg, and so I wanted to show off her painted legs with this little, you know, high slit, you know, very sort of flirty angel costume. This is from, I want to say the year 2000, and it's just a really cute, again, sort of crisp, starched, one might say budget costume, and I love the very sort of crispity, crunchity tricot that they have sprayed with adhesive and then covered in glitter. These really cute little angel wings, I think these are so cute. And again, for a like budget doll, a playline doll costume, something that's made to be sort of beat up, it's like, it's very well done. I think that is, like, the wings are sort of dimensional and puffy. They're beautifully done. What really gets me together, my favorite part, obviously, is the halo. I saw this and I could not leave it. The halo headband is so funny. It's just funny to me. It works. This is such a true, like, Barbie is wearing a costume. I think without it, it feels sort of sincere. I think without the headband, it feels sort of, you know, really earnest. But with it, it's like she's toddling into a party, and I just think that's fantastic. So there are a couple other, like, year 2000 fantasy costumes that I think I have one or two more here with a headband, but I can't get enough of this one. The only thing that would make this better was if they made a companion as the devil, and I can just see it with, like, a little leotard with a tail and her, you know, trident. It would be, oh god, it would be so good. I guess I could make one, but I'm trying to keep as much of this as possible to, like, Mattel canon pieces for Barbie. So in the meantime, this one cracks me up. I love this one. My next one with a headband I want to show you is so cute. I can't stand this one. I just love this. This is so goofy and so silly. Very few elements of this I think are actually, like, good, but that's what I think makes it so fun to me. First of all, I don't know what this is supposed to be. Like, right out of the gate, is she a fairy? Is she a bug? Is she an intergalactic bug fairy? I don't know, but I love it. The thing about these fashions is they didn't say what they were, and they actually, like, many of them don't, as far as I can tell, have stock numbers either. The backside of this packaging will show, like, a number of other examples you can buy, like, within that year or within that season or whatever, but they're not displaying this and its stock number and its name. So, like, the angel is another example. I don't really know what these are, you know, meant to be, other than, like, this is very obvious and this feels a little bit interpretive, but I love her. I love her. Again, on a Titian bubble, I love the combination of red and purple. I think it's very effective. We've got more of those spitty crunchity metallic wings, more of that, oh, that crunchy fabric. ASMR, eat your heart out. That's delicious. And then we have these tights that just do not fit her. These, in what world do these fit any doll? But, like, these are fresh out of box, you know? I haven't stretched these out. I love the fabric, this sort of reflective, plasticky, it's woven like tricot, but it's almost mesh. It's a very silly little purple metallic tight with a iridescent clear purple sparkly glitter shoe, and these wings and this tutu. I mean, like, this fabric is actually, it's really pretty. It might be sort of cheap, but it's gorgeous. And then these antennae, again, like, these are bug antennae, you guys. I don't know a fairy that has antenna like this. So I'm coining her my intergalactic fairy bug. She's one of my very favorites. I was staging this with a pair of her, like, student teacher or registered nurse black clear lens glasses. It feels so cute with like a little camera in her hand, like she's coming to the party like a little bit nerdy, but very, you know, confident and sincere, and she would be the life of the party for sure. This one cracks me up. I love this one. I don't know, what else can I say about this? I just think this is so goofy. Anything that has a mask or a headband is like, there's no question that that's like a costume for Barbie, and it's, I think, one of the best. I haven't really been following categories necessarily, but I do think that the last several were very much like fantasy themed, and I want to move into what is more like folklore, what is more like fairy tale, because I think Barbie's done so much of that, and very, very well. So I want to show you one of the dolls that like changed my life. I'm sure I've talked about this before, but the 1999, I think she's 99, this is Barbie in the Nutcracker as the Sugar Plum Princess, and this is a little bit off-brand for what I'm usually talking about on here, on my own Instagram. I don't do a lot with nostalgia from my own childhood, and I don't do a lot with modern Barbie, but this doll, I remember this doll coming out and my life ended. Like, everything in the world came to a screeching halt when I saw this doll for the first time, and I was able to get her as an adult, and she remains one of my favorites. Like, this is such a magical doll, and I think something like the Nutcracker is a long-standing tradition all over the world. People celebrate it with each Christmas season every year, and I'm no exception. This doll comes out every Christmas. I use her as a Christmas decoration, and I think she's outrageous. I also am ruined now because I think every other ballerina should look like this. I want glitter, I want pink, I want tulle, I want ruffles, I want iridescent curly golden hair. And actually, I'm not, you know, fond necessarily of articulated dolls more than others, but this one I think is very, very well done. She's just a good example of what I think Mattel was doing at this time for folklore, for fantasy, for fairy tales, for imaginative play, and for the entire world of collectors that collect this era of Barbie. She's like, she might be like #1. She is certainly on the, you know, top 3 of the list of best fantasy dolls. She's just, I love this one. So if you wanted to be, you know, the Nutcracker for Halloween, I think that works. I think that's fine. You know, start Christmas early. Who's stopping you? And then some other examples. I want to show some more photos because I haven't been doing a ton of that. I'll show you here a photo of another one of my favorites. Rapunzel Barbie is, I think from this, she's either the same year or the next year. She might be the year 2000. And Rapunzel Barbie has the same sort of mechanism that one of my favorites has. Grow and Pretty Hair Barbie was 1971, 1972, and she had a mechanism that allowed a ponytail in her head to grow by, you know, extending out and then retracting, and you could do that over and over again. And it wouldn't be the first it wouldn't be the last time that Mattel used that idea. They recycled it again for Rapunzel Barbie, and she has this, you know, already quite long ponytail, and then she comes with a cute little like Velcro on extension that you can clip to the end of that, you know, lock of hair, and so then it trails on down her tower so that Ken can come climb it up. It's very, very cute. But she would also be very much like top 3 of, you know, 2000s collectors dolls. She's gorgeous, and they did Rapunzel several times. I mean, the number of times Barbie's been a princess at all is countless. I really, truly could not begin. There's so many Playline princess dolls, so like if you're trying to include all of them, I mean, you probably have, I'm gonna guess, 30 to 50, if not more. Like, she's been a princess so many times. So I guess I could have thrown in any princess, but that one feels, again, like a standout and maybe one of my favorites. In addition to Rapunzel, there's also, I don't know, like you could argue that like maybe Barbie as Peter Rabbit is a costume. I don't know that it is, but Little Bo Peep, I have a photo of. She's, again, a classic, and I think that's a great example of really going all out as a costume. You could, you know, stage that on that doll, and it's a little bit more earnest and sincere, and she's maybe depicting a character, maybe like you would sort of in a play, but I think you can also treat that a little bit campier as if it were a costume. Like, imagine her walking into a party filled with cobwebs and, you know, dry ice. I think that's fantastic. With a ruffled bonnet and everything, I mean, she's spectacular. Not a doll that I need to have necessarily, but I guess that's why she's not here. But she does make a great little cameo for a costume. And then my next sort of category is I wanted to talk about like pop culture and maybe the sort of time capsule nostalgia. Barbie has been, you know, self-referential over many decades, many times. And in the, I want to say it was the 90s, it might have been, again, just the early 2000s, there was a collector line of dolls that were going back through each decade. And I don't have that line with me, but I do have a very fun related one. This is a gift from one of my very dear friends, Miss Diana Vining. If she's watching, hello friend, thank you so much. This was a gift from Diana in anticipation for the UFDC this last year, which was themed after the 20s. And this doll is really gorgeous. I mean, this is in many ways sort of a collector doll, but she feels like a different caliber. Like, this is marabou, it's beads, it's sequins, it's rhinestones. It's incredibly detailed, and I know that something produced of this caliber today would cost a lot of money. And so I'm just grateful to have this in my collection. This is from the 20s, and I think you could really, again, sort of take her out and make this a little bit more of an earnest, sincere effort to like capture the 20s. But again, I imagine her walking into a party, and she's the life of the party. This doll is so gorgeous. Anything with, you know, that kind of marabou with that number of sequins and beading, it counts. It's fun to play with eras, and, you know, I mean, I think that that's an intrinsic part of Halloween. Like, I'll show you photos here that maybe there are other eras that are more common or popular to make a costume out of, but like the 20s is a perfect one, especially now that we're 100 years later. An entire century feels like a good time to sort of be reflective and think about, you know, yesteryear and playing with that decade. But I also have photos of several 50s dolls. 50s Fun Barbie and Soda Shop Barbie and Nifty 50s Barbie are great examples of costumes that we didn't actually get for Barbie. Her debut was in 1959, and so to have like poodle skirts and little, you know, tennis shoes and the ruffles and the frills, it's again, these are approached with the sort of admiration and playfulness that you would with a costume, rather than them being maybe real fashions that Barbie would have truly actually worn. They're also more like teenage, teeny bopper, like fun, youthful fashions. Like, I think Barbie always started just a little bit older and maybe a little bit more sophisticated as a character. But we get, especially with 50s Fun Barbie, she's more of a playline doll, and she's just, I just love it. I love that they all three have poodle skirts, and the closest thing we ever got to that was like Friday Night Date. But of the three, I think Nifty 50s is probably my favorite. She's gorgeous. Love that face, love that long blonde ponytail, and then the Daisy Duke tie at the waist. They did a great job with this. She's a little bit more flirty and fun. So cute. And then we move on to Groovy 60s, which is another doll from the collector's line. I want to say it was like late 90s, early 2000s, that showed a mod turn in like British and American fashions. It is reminiscent of many things that we were seeing for Barbie in late 60s, but nothing quite as costumey, right? Like, it has an outlandish feel because it's not like they went and found like vintage 60s clothing at like a consignment shop and wore that to a party. It's creating, newly manufacturing something that feels reminiscent of an idea. And so that's sort of how I want to approach all of this video. I hope it's working. I don't know. Maybe this is all just for me. But this is, again, another example, I think, of a great costume for Barbie. Similarly, the 70s had, I mean, I think the 70s is probably still maybe the most like costumed decade that you see at like Party City or something. Like Spirit Halloween, you walk in there and like you're gonna find a pendant with a peace sign and a headband and fringe and a long middle part, and like you're gonna see like a costume from the 70s. And we have I mean, like, we did a whole video on 70s fashions that, again, is one of my favorites. Go watch that if you haven't. Barbie's had so many, you know, moments through that era that didn't quite look like that. Maybe live action Barbie is the closest one, but we have Peace and Love Barbie, which actually comes with a peace sign molded hand, which is so insane to me. Like, that's an expense. They went all out for like a custom hand for Barbie. But again, we didn't see anything in lifetime in the 70s for her quite like this, and it feels like a caricature of an idea through that decade. So again, if you want a great costume for Barbie, this one I think is right on the money. It's silly. So my next category is like film and media personalities and things that you've seen in TV or on stage, and all of the ways that Barbie's done that over the years, and the ones that I think are highlights. So I've done a little fun, silly thing. I've got one of my vintage American Girls here in a Barbie Dorothy from the Wizard of Oz fashion. This, I want to say, is the Hollywood Legends collector series. I'm gonna guess like 94, maybe 96. That's what the fashion is, of course. This is an American Girl from, I would guess, 65. This is, The Wizard of Oz holds a deep, close, cherished little warm spot in my heart. I love this story, and I guess you could pick any number of Dorothy fashions. Mattel has done, I'm gonna guess, like 7 or 8 different versions of Dorothy. If I can count them in my head right now, I would be impressed. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4. I bet it's about 7 or 8. And there are other ones that I think are even stronger contenders for the costume of Dorothy. Like, they did the sort of vintage retro, you know, nostalgic throwback version with Glinda and the Witch maybe 12 years ago. It's been a while, but they've got sort of like a poodle skirt style costume. Those, again, are collector favorites. They're gorgeous, and they feature the vintage sculpt, so I love them. But this is a little bit more earnest, and I do, for Dorothy, I love classic. But we've done like Miss Dorothy Gale, which is like your classic slutty Dorothy costume. We've done the, like, you know, haute couture, like beautiful chiffon Dorothy. There's been many iterations of Dorothy, but this one is one that just brings me joy. And I put glitter on these little shoes to get them closer to ruby slippers if I could. Fear not, I didn't, you know, do any harm. This was an already split pair of mules that I just wanted to repurpose. I don't usually display broken shoes because they don't stay on and whatever, but I covered these in super glue and then shook them around in a jar of glitter, and now they're ruby slippers. So I don't know. Dorothy is a staple both in, you know, real costume shops and in real life, and for dolls. I think Dorothy is a no-brainer. Any Wizard of Oz characters are a shoo-in, and you could do that about 100 ways with any number of Dorothy iterations you'd like. I also have some photos of I'm gonna say like mid-90s Cinderella set. This is also for Sleeping Beauty. They had some for both movies. You've got the Fairy Godmother and the Wicked Stepmother, and these are fantastic because they didn't sell the actual dolls of those characters. They sold you Cinderella and the Prince, and then these fashions came with rubber masks that you like put over Cinderella's head, and then all of a sudden she was the Fairy Godmother. And so she's got the cape and she's got whatever. The same with the Wicked Stepmother, there's the gown and what have you, but she's got this like sculpted rubber head that you just put on top of Cinderella's. I love that. Great costumes. I think they're so fun and such a silly way to effectively communicate storytelling while also, from a business perspective, like save money. It's very fun, and that feels reminiscent, actually. Like the playability of that reminds me of the Little Theater from '64. We've got Catwoman. There were many iterations of Catwoman, so I threw in one with a vintage sculpt. I love this one. I believe this set also came with a really nice, like, again, sometimes people ask me, like, what do you think about Ken? I'm like, I don't think about Ken. But this came with a really fun set for Ken as Batman, and he looks really good. So, I don't know, you could do, like, comic books are like a whole other can of worms, but you can throw them in as costumes here. Bewitched is another great costume, not only because of pop culture and because of you know, what have you, that you could find relevant, but like, she's a witch. So if you wanted to play with cut and dry, you know, costumes that were made for Halloween for Barbie, you know, playline dolls, there were many witches done. But this is like a fun, I don't know, a slightly more exciting way, I think, to be a witch for Halloween. Reference a cultural touchstone. I think that's much more fun, and they did a great job with this. I love that weird little broom. Great job. One that I love, someday I'll get this doll, the Alfred Hitchcock The Birds Barbie doll. The fashion on this is so beautiful. I love that like part of the fashion are the birds. Like, this doll is incredible. I love the sculpt, I love the expression, I love the purse. Like, they did a great job really recreating the costume. But if you walked into a party with birds like on your body, on your head, I think you might win the contest. Like, this is one of my favorites. I think this is so fantastic. For me, a costume should be not only recognizable and fun, it should also be funny. Like, I think a really well done costume is entertaining. It's not just like impressive, it's something you can sort of play with. And I don't know, this might be like in my top 3. I really, really love this doll. I also put in Maria from The Sound of Music. This doll is sweet. She's just a sweet one. Again, I love this story. I love this movie. I think they did a great job for choice of costume and execution of it. The guitar is beautiful. I love her little hat. The floral print in the skirt. It's a must for collectors, especially for movie character collectors. I just love this doll. Like, you could bring this to any party and you would be a shoo-in. I love this costume. For my last example for a movie costume, I don't think this really counts, but I wanted to throw it in. I've got Barbie in her Barbie the movie, saving the day, end of the movie jumpsuit. And this is, I think this is sort of two birds, one stone. On a vintage doll, it feels so fun because it is self-referential, you know? Like, this is one of the earliest examples of a Barbie doll in one of her most recent and most, like, impactful appearances. In the movie, this is the point where, like, they take back Barbie Land, and I didn't really buy any of the movie dolls or the movie fashions, although I was very tempted by some. This one I loved the message of, and so I guess if you're gonna put on a Barbie vignette specifically, making a diorama for Halloween, I really love the idea of a vintage doll in this fashion. It's fun and goofy, you know? She's Barbie, and she's here and she's saving the day in her most practical outfit maybe ever. She's a fun one. And then I wanted to move on to my last major category, which is masks. So there have been many, both in this video, masks, and, you know, out in the world, products for Barbie masks. There's no way I can cover all of them, but I wanted to show you some of my favorites. So right away, the obvious choice for me is Costume Ball Barbie. This is a really fun one for a couple reasons. I mean, her face is demented. I love the makeup, it's crazy. But she comes with a little masquerade mask that you can, like, have her wear to her party. But the fun part, one of the fun parts, maybe the most fun, is that her skirt has a, you know, second function, as so many, you know, late 90s fashions did, that you can take this off of her waist and then retie it on your own head, and it's a mask for kids. It's so cute. So if you want to play with, you know, breaking the fourth wall and maybe making a costume party for Barbie for Halloween, you can participate with this if you'd like. With the Costume Ball doll, there were many playsets and actually many fashions too. So I've got some examples of some of my favorite fashions. Notably, my favorite is the bunny, which does not translate as a bunny at all. You have to really look for the reference that it's a rabbit, which is her masquerade mask and, you know, little ears on the top. She comes with a little bit of like an Elle Woods, you know, Playboy bunny tail. It's a little flirty, but I love it. And like hot pink tufts of fur. I mean, like, how can you go wrong? But the mermaid is also really incredible. This was such a fun line that really utilized the campiness of a costume. Really struck the right balance in my book. I love these fashions. There was also a fashion from the Ice Capades collection that I'll show you here. The Ice Capades doll was an ice skating doll, and she had several, you know, ice skater fashions, but this one came with a little mask, and I thought it was really cute. So if you wanted to be an ice skater for Halloween, I would first go this route because it really plays with, you know, oh god, I don't know why it's only when I'm on camera. I think this one really plays with the imaginative play of that element. It's just cute. And then my last photo example, I have one more here with me, this is Ballet Star Barbie, I want to say from 2000, it might be 2001, I'll show you here. She's so cute, but the thing that makes this kind of special is, beside just her rehearsal fashion and her performance tutu, she's also got this like swan-like cardboard paper little mask that is so cute. I love the little beak, I love the little crown. And this is like not an element that is really highlighted on the doll, in the box, on the advertising. Like, the mask does not make a large appearance. I stumbled upon this one on accident, and I love this doll. I think I might treat myself to this one, because I love that little mask. I think she's such a fun doll, and like the tutu is pretty, and I love ballerinas, so we'll see if I need to exercise restraint, but I just love examples of masks. I think, you know, costumes should have masks. That's my hot take, I guess. And I want to show you one of my favorite examples of that. So the one and only Holly Golightly from Breakfast at Tiffany's had many fashions, and this doll is showing off. This is one of my vintage bubbles wearing the costume when, you know, her and the romantic lead are stealing from the dime store. They're shoplifting from the dime store. And I just think the detail in this fashion is so incredible. They nailed this down to the smallest thread. The mask really, I don't know if I can pick a favorite element, but that one, it's hard to, you know, beat the mask. But the entire thing is so well constructed. And I mean, I think the coat actually is really impressive to me. I love the tights, I love the shoes, I love the gloves, I love the whole thing. And I do, as problematic as it is, I do have a little soft spot in my heart for the story. And this one I think I might just leave up year-round. This is a fashion I've been wanting for a long time, and I treated myself to it this year, and I'm really glad that I did. It feels quintessential, and it's Halloween without necessarily being spooky, which I also like. But the commitment to spooky can be a lot, and this makes it, I don't know, more accessible. And last but not least, I want to remind people that you can always do what you want to for Halloween. And, you know, fashion in general doesn't have any rules. And I think, you know, there are so many beautiful, gorgeous ideas that have, you know, inspiration blossoming inside of very talented, skilled people's minds. And to encourage you to go use those skills to, you know, fulfill those ideas. Go sew, go craft, go paint, go whatever. This is Mattel stuff, but like, all of the magic in the world exists in our brains, so who are we to keep it to ourselves? Go use it. To this point, again, the highlight of this video really is Diana Vining, and she, back in the Ohio show, gifted me a beautiful little Harlequin print black and orange dress for Halloween for Barbie, and I sort of paired this little broom with it because I thought it was, you know, she's maybe like an undercover witch, very cute. I thought this was such a sweet gift from her. She is one of the most generous, giving people that I've ever had the pleasure to know, and to get to say that I've developed a friendship with her is like, it makes my heart warm. So Diana, if you're watching this, thank you for all of your endless generosity. You're a really beautiful person, and I say that with all the sincerity. For people that don't know, like, they're missing out. Everyone needs to go give Diana Vining a big virtual hug right now, because this was so sweet of her. Sometimes, you know, dolly gifts are even more impactful than any other kind. I think doll people understand each other so uniquely and so specifically, and to be seen and understood and cared for in that way by someone who gets it is the greatest gift in the whole world. So this gorgeous little dress that she found online by a small business that made it by hand is really special. And I don't know if there's any encouragement that anybody needs at, you know, during this video, it's maybe to just go play with your friends. Go make friends and go play. That's what dolls are all about. And I think that's also what Halloween is about. Like, if we're not playing, if we're not having fun, then it's only scary. And like, that's not fun. You gotta have fun with the spooky. And Diana is a great thrill to do that with. So here is my sort of, I would say, tip of the iceberg lineup for costumes for Barbie. There are so many that I didn't cover, but these are ones that stand out to me. These are ones that make me feel fun and happy and inspired and immersed in play. So maybe take that spirit away from this, if anything. Go play with your own stuff. Go find new ways to be inspired by your stuff. Go shopping, you know? Sometimes shopping is the most fun, inspiring thing, and I love to shop, so don't get it twisted. You can always add something in new to your collection, but maybe limiting that to only the things that feel like Halloween dolls, I think is restrictive. So for the queen of costumes, for the queen of fashions, maybe only competed with by her sister Kelly. Play with Barbie and all of the world of her clothing, because there's a lot to cover. So in the meantime, happy spooky season, happy Halloween. Thank you so much for joining. Again, I'm sort of long-winded, so I always appreciate anybody that is staying till the very end. If you need some, Halloween plans this year, break out Barbie. She won't disappoint. Thank you so much. See you next time. Bye.